I know you're out there. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
The KrisAnne Hall Show.
Any varmint that crosses that lady's path has met its match. Come
on! Rise and shine, liberty-loving patriots. Welcome to the KrisAnne Hall Show. KrisAnne Hall here, KrisAnnehall.com. Liberty over security, principle over party, and truth over your favorite personality. How are you today? Are you sick and tired of what you're seeing in the news? Are you tired of the media-fed narrative? Well, I hope so. I hope so. I hope that we can learn some things from what we are seeing and hearing today. And, you know, I am becoming more and more convinced that we should all be doing this information request from our congressman, a demand for their emails. And as a matter of fact, I have made a list of things that I am going to email my representative, Ted Yoho, to turn over emails regarding. I'm going to try to make it as narrow and as specific as I can so they cannot claim that it's overbroad and too comprehensive. I want to know what Ted Yoho has written to his staffers and other congressmen regarding the Benghazi investigation. I want to know what Ted Yoho and his staffers have written to each other and to other congressmen and other departments of the government regarding the impeachment of Hillary Clinton, regarding the impeachment of Barack Obama. I want to know what Ted Yoho and his staffers have communicated with each other and other representatives and other agencies in the federal government regarding what's going on in Oregon. I want to know what Ted Yoho has written to his staffers and other agencies about the Affordable Care Act, about the gun grab. I want to know what Ted Yoho and his staffers have written to each other and to other representatives and senators and agencies about Hillary's emails. I want to know. I want to know if Ted Yoho is talking about the important things. I want to know what Ted Yoho has written to his staffers and his and other representatives and senators and other agencies about IRS civil forfeitures. I want to know what Ted Yoho is writing to his to other legislators, his staffers, and other departments and agencies in the federal government about the federal government reading our emails and violating our privacy. I want to know about these things. I want to know if Ted Yoho is talking about the right things, and I want to know if he's talking correctly about the right things. And this is why I think demanding emails from your representative is so important. Because you see, here's the thing. I am watching what's going on with this email dump with Hillary Clinton. And I'm absolutely stunned at the media narrative that is trailing along with this thing. Mind you, we have evidence. We had evidence long before the emails were leaked. This is just, bonus. But we have evidence that Hillary Clinton and her staff have acted criminally, unethically. We're talking about high crimes and misdemeanors here, bribery, serious offenses. And what is the narrative? That we can't vote for Hillary because of the emails. The emails prove that Hillary is not fit for office. The emails show that Hillary is lying, and that means that we should vote for someone else. The emails prove that 96% of, that the journalists and Hillary have an intimate relationship in which one feeds information to the other controls the other. The Center for Public Integrity has followed through and said 96% of journalists' political donations go to Hillary Clinton. We know that Hillary Clinton has broken the law with her server and the release of classified information. We know that people in the military who have violated this same statute are now sitting in prison. But I'm wondering, how many more pieces of evidence do we need to actually do something about this? Rush posted this on his Facebook page. FBI document dump proves this woman has no business anywhere near power. Really? It's 100 pages and it's dynamic and it's just astounding, folks, he says. You look at this and you wonder, how in the world did this woman not get charged? How in the world did this not get sent to the grand jury? Of course we know President Obama didn't want it. He didn't want any of it going anywhere because he's implicated in it. He lied. Well, I think that's really great insight. First off, I mean, this is the continuing headline as I move through Facebook. All of these things prove that Hillary should not be president. And it was Obama that kept her out of prison. You know, I just don't, I'm sick and tired of this, blaming all this stuff on Obama. Sure, we know that Obama controls the Department of Justice, but hey, Congress controls Obama and the Department of Justice. Hillary Clinton is walking away with this and still running for president because your congressman is doing nothing. They let her walk away from Benghazi. Really? And now, where is the congressional investigation? I thought they loved these things. I thought the Republican majority in the House loved congressional hearings because it was great for campaign fodder. I mean, we're in an election cycle. We've got over half the House up for election. And now we have, what now? We can't have a congressional hearing over this? I mean, this is high crimes and misdemeanors. This is criminal activity. And they should be investigating this. Why wouldn't they? Well, I think it's the same thing that Rush said about Obama. They don't want to investigate this because I believe you're going to find that many of them are implicated in it. And as remember, the emails revealed, the congressmen don't want to touch emails at all because they don't want you asking for theirs. So why don't we ask for theirs? Let's just get this all out and start demanding that they do something about this. Hillary Clinton should be impeached. It doesn't matter. No, I'm sorry. Trey Gowdy was not correct. He was not correct when he said that they could not do anything about Hillary Clinton. Yes, he said that. As a congressman, he declared that he could do nothing about Hillary Clinton. He said on Hugh Hewitt's show that Congress doesn't have the, quote, authority to subpoena the server Hillary used during her term as Secretary of State because, quote, House rules do not provide for that authority. And in that interview with Hugh Hewitt, Trey Gowdy simply admitted that Congress believe that they are powerless. and that we live in a kingdom. But here's the thing. They should be impeaching her. They have the authority to do that. Article 2, Section 4, the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. These emails do not prove that Hillary Clinton should not be elected president. These emails do not prove that Hillary Clinton should not be running for office. These emails prove that Hillary Clinton should be unable to ever run for any office again, that she should be impeached as Secretary of the State, and that she should be in prison for what she's done. Oh, but KrisAnne, she's not Secretary of State anymore. You can't impeach her. Well, that's not true. That's not true at all. There is a precedent to impeach Hillary Clinton, even though she is not in office anymore. And it comes from 1876. You see, William Belknap served as Secretary of War under Ulysses S. Grant from October 25, 1869 to March 2, 1876. While the Secretary of War, Belknap's extravagant lifestyle came under review. Belknap only made $8,000 a year, but was known for his extravagant lifestyle and expensive parties. And Congress launched an investigation into his finances and found corruption that extended back to 1870. Now, Belknap found out that they had issued articles of impeachment on him for his extravagance, for his stealing money from the people, kickbacks and briberies. Some of the accusations included selling weapons to France for kickbacks, gun running kickbacks, political deals for financial gain. Isn't that exactly what Hillary Clinton is involved in here?
KrisAnne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
So we have William Belknap engaging in the same activity that, and I would submit to you, less activity than Hillary Clinton's emails indicate. And then the House of Representatives draws up articles of impeachment for him. According to Senate records, on March 2nd, 1876, just minutes before the House of Representatives was scheduled to vote on articles of impeachment, Belknap raced to the White House, handed Grant his resignation, and burst into tears. Belknap's resignation, was accepted, but he is no longer in office. Okay? There's no vote yet. There's no impeachment yet. And his resignation has been accepted, so he is no longer in office. But that did not stop his impeachment. Congressional records quote, later that day, members voted unanimously to send the Senate 5 articles of impeachment. What was their accusation? Criminally disregarding his duty as Secretary of War. That's who the Secretary of State is, by the way, now. The Secretary of War is now called the Secretary of State. And basely prostituting his high office to his lust for private gain, end quote. I have never heard a better description of Hillary Clinton. Yet what does our Congress do today? There's been no constitutional amendment that changed Article 2, Section 4. There's been no change in precedent since 1876. They love precedent. And impeaching Hillary would preclude her from holding any office, public office, in the future, ever. You see, James Madison said their responsibility to impeach Hillary is not only established, but also invokes an even bigger responsibility to impeach Barack Obama too. But what are we going to do? We can't even impeach. We can't even impeach the director, the Attorney General of the United States. We cannot even impeach the Attorney General of the United States when it has been proven in Congress, when Congress finds him guilty of criminal contempt, and Eric Holder walks free. Why? Because guess what? We will not have a Congress that will check the other branches because they know it will implicate themselves. How crazy is this? How insane have we become? No, it's not Barack Obama rush. Not as congressional hearing happy crazy our congressmen are. Why aren't we need to find out what our congressmen are saying about this. We need to find out why they will not pull another hearing on Hillary Clinton. We need to find out why they're not drafting articles of impeachment for Hillary Clinton. We need to find out what they're afraid of. So if we just get it out in the open, then they don't have to be afraid anymore. They can just do what they're supposed to do. I mean, it is an election year. When they want to be able to do an investigation of a Democrat office, I mean, can you imagine the Democrats that they could pull into a congressional hearing based on these emails? Oh, my goodness. They could ensure not just simply a majority. They could take over the House and the Senate completely and have the office of the president. They could get all the Supreme Court justices they wanted. Holy cow. Who knows how deep this would go? Oops. There you have it. Who knows how deep it will go? How many emails has make Paul Ryan complicit with all of this? How many emails make John Boehner complicit in all of this? How many emails make Harry Reid and John McCain complicit in all of this? Accessories to criminal activity. That's why they don't want you to know about this. That's why there'll be no congressional hearing, because they're involved.
So don't let them steal your light. Don't let them break your stride. There is light on the other side. You'll see all the raindrops falling. So it'll lose shine.
The KrisAnne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
I was also wanted to talk about this thing. I didn't mention this email or this article by CNN Politics, because we talked about Chris Cuomo yesterday, where Chris Cuomo said it's illegal for us to read Hillary's emails, but it's okay for the media because the media can possess stolen items, but the regular people cannot. And therefore, everything that you need to know about Hillary's emails, you can trust CNN to tell you. And then, of course, today, CNN has this article by Tal Koppen that says, no, the presidential election can't be hacked. Well, you can trust CNN. Well, the DNC can be hacked. They proved that local elections can be hacked. But no, don't worry. Don't worry, the presidential election can't be swayed by a hack. No, but it can be swayed by the media, can't it? When the media is not telling us everything that we know, that we need to know, everything that we should know. When Congress is not telling us everything that we should know or need to know, and the media is not calling out Congress, seriously. That's how the altering of the election will go. It's amazing to me, and I'm not picking sides here at all. You know how I am. But we have in Florida, my home state, they're campaigning Hillary and Trump are campaigning there, and we're getting reports that Hillary's rallies are calling in 500, 600, 700 people at tops. Trump is still calling in 30,000 people wherever he goes. And I wonder, how is it that the headlines can still be Hillary 47, Trump 43? Are they trying to convince us of something so that it will sway our votes? Well, that's true. So anyway, I've spent too much time on that. I also wanted to talk about this article in the Washington Post, because this is a really big thing to people wanting to run for, wanting to know who to vote for president, this Supreme Court nomination question. And John McCain is, 1 minute he's talking about blocking Clinton's Supreme Court nominees indefinitely. The next minute he's well, we're not sure if we will or not. But I want to talk about this article in the Washington Post. This article is titled by Amber Phillips, "John McCain is Right. Senate Republicans could block a Clinton Supreme Court nominee indefinitely." And it's interesting how this article is worded, because it is true. The Senate could block a presidential nominee for Supreme Court indefinitely. But under what terms and under what section of the Constitution is the ruling matter? Well, the ruling language over Supreme Court justice nominations and appointments comes from Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, specifically Clauses 2 and 3. This lists the power delegated to the President of the United States. It's one of the things that our framers did to ensure that the President could not become, in the exercise of power, a king. It says, he, the President, shall have power by and with the advice and consent of the Senate to make treaties, provided 2/3 of senators present can concur. And he shall nominate by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers, consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for. And so we know that the President, by Article 2, Section 2, does not actually appoint Supreme Court justices. He simply nominates, and those shall only come from the consent of the Senate. But in this article, it's funny how they spin this. And she says, we've actually been over this before. The night Justice Antonin Scalia died in February, Russell Wheeler, what's wrong with my mouth this morning? Russell Wheeler, with the Brookings Institution, pointed out that there's nothing in the Constitution that the Senate has to confirm or even consider the president's nominee. Now, I disagree with that. I think they have to consider, but they don't have to confirm. Now, look what she's now partially quoting. She's referencing Article 2, of the Constitution, but she is not quoting it. And I want to point out what she is saying, because these are the subtle manipulations that happen when we don't actually read the Constitution and we don't really know. We read these articles and she's quoting experts, so she must be right. She says, in parenthetical, as a reference to the Constitution, she says, quote, the Constitution says the Senate shall advise the president, which over time we've taken to mean will approve or disapprove of. But despite precedent, Wheeler says there are very few courts that would interpret shall as must. Oh my goodness. There are so many things wrong with that little paragraph that I can't even begin. Notice how she selectively quotes Article 2. It doesn't say shall advise. It says, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers, consuls, judges of the Supreme Court. Not just by advice, but by consent. Notice that the consent part is conveniently ignored. Oh, they're just giving advice. And we've interpreted advice as consent, as a disapprove or approve of. No. The word that we interpret as approve or disapprove of would be with consent. And that's the word that actually means to approve or disapprove of. Not reinterpreting the word advice. It's not based on precedent. It's based on the very language of the Constitution itself. And this whole idea, this progressive manipulation of the language of the Constitution, because we rely on what experts say rather than the Constitution itself. I love this part. There are very few courts that would interpret shall as must. What? In the legal language, shall is a must. Shall means there is no option. The court shall do this. It's not up for opinion. It's not up for interpretation. Shall means you have to. Here's the problem, though. We have the progressive redefining of words. Shall, when the Constitution was written, means will have to. But now, according to new progressive definition, it means will be able to, can. No, that is not the meaning of the word shall. Shall is a directive. Shall means you must. It expressly, here it even is in Merriam-Webster. Used in laws, regulations, or directives to express what is mandatory. It shall be unlawful to carry firearms. Oh, look at that example they use. How funny is that? It shall be unlawful to carry firearms, ignoring the fact that the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. Isn't that a little funny little twist that they have there? I just noticed that in their explanation of the word shall. Used in laws and regulations or directives to express what is mandatory. But now we have this progressive redefinition of our words and trying to turn shall into can. And this expert, Russell Wheeler with the Brookings Institute, says, no. Shall is not a directive of what must happen. It just means you can do it. You can do it. It will be all right. No. You cannot. How is that? How is that possible? That you can not only interpret the Constitution, but redefine the words. Isn't that what we're battling with here? So she says the Constitution says the Senate shall advise the president, which over time has been taken to mean will approve or disapprove of. Let's go ahead and read this one more time. He shall have power. Well, I wonder if they would interpret that shall differently. He can have the power, but he doesn't have to have the power. by and with the advice and consent of the Senate to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur, and he shall nominate by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint. So he shall nominate, but only by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall these appointments be made. Be careful where you're getting your education from. So it is true that the Senate can refuse to appoint a presidential nomination. But it's not a matter of precedent. It's not a matter of interpretation. It's a matter of the very language of the Constitution. And the purpose it was put in there like that was so that our president would not become a king. Alexander Hamilton makes this clear in Federalist Papers 69. He says, in comparing a president to a king, the president would have a like concurrent authority in appointing to offices. The other is the sole author of all appointments. And the reason they did this would be that there would be a separation of these powers so that we would not have an aristocracy, a monarchy, and a despotism. Yet, isn't that how our Congress operates today? Our Senate giving the president whatever he wants, transmuting the office of the president into the throne of a king.
My right to tote the weapon of my choice. Don't censor my voice. Hate me if you want, or love me if you can. If the truth is what you want, then you found your man. I ain't backing down, I ain't backing up. If you think like I think, then crank it on up. I won't back up, I don't back down. I've been raised up to stand my ground. Take my job, but not my guns. Tax my check till I ain't got none. Except for the good Lord up above. I answer to no.
The KrisAnne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
So I think this article in the Washington Post is just simply a brilliant example of how the media is actively manipulating the information that the people are receiving about government. And because we don't teach these things in the schools anymore, and because Americans have become universally ignorant onto the function of the Constitution and how it's supposed to work, and the power of the people and the limited power of the federal government and all the branches. I mean, how many people in America can tell us what separation of powers is? How many people in America can tell us the limited nature of the office of the president and how it's controlled by Congress in a myriad of ways? I think it's amazing to remember that it was on the Kelly Files, in which Megyn Kelly declared, with their Fox expert, that our founders created the president in a primarily unlimited fashion with more power than a king. And Megyn Kelly says, yes, you're right. How many Americans believe that our president was created with greater authority than a British king? How is it that we in the conservative realm, because we're the ones that claim to really admire the founders of America, believing that they were brilliant, calling them genius, even believing that they were, in some cases, deifying them, and yet think that they were so stupid that they would create within the office of the president the very power, greater power, than they were declaring independence from. If they called what George III was doing complete despotism, why would they vest in the president greater power than a king? Because they didn't. And because we're ignorant. We can believe articles like this in the Washington Post. We can believe that the president should have his pick and that the Senate only advises the president if they want to. And the courts would never give them an absolute authority over these nominations. It's not about precedent. It's about the Constitution. It's about separation of powers. It's about checks and balances. And instead of worrying about who's going to be president of the United States, why don't worry about who your senator's going to be, so that your senator can block a Supreme Court nomination that is not constitutional. See, remember, we don't want a conservative Supreme Court justice any more than we want a liberal Supreme Court justice. We want a constitutional Supreme Court justice, one that recognizes the limited nature of the power of the federal government, one that recognizes the essential check and balance of the states over the federal government, the fact that the Constitution delegates few and defined limited power to the federal government and reserves unnumerated powers to the states. Yeah, but James Madison said that the powers delegated to the federal government are few and defined. Those that remain in the states are numerous and indefinite. He says the powers reserved to the states will include all the power, to include the lives, liberties, properties of the people, the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state. He said the powers delegated to the federal government are to be on foreign affairs like war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce. So the question is, really, who is your authority, right? Is Washington Post your authority? Is the Brookings Institution the authority? Is Russell Wheeler within the Brookings Institution the authority? Or should it be the designers of the document themselves? If your car breaks down, are you going to go to the Brookings Institute and ask Mr. Wheeler how to fix your car? Or are you going to get the manual created by the designers of the vehicle? It's all about using the proper authority. And we've become universally ignorant, so we're not quite sure. It's time to get educated. God bless. See you tomorrow.